Jerry Dipoto Show, presented by Seattle Pump and Equipment on Seattle Sports.
Jerry, no 15-game win streak, but 2 8-game win streaks. Which is better?
Living in the now, I'll take the 2 8-game win streaks. It's +2, you know?
Pretty fun. I mean, like, what just got into this team is unbelievable over the course of this month, and obviously a lot of it keyed by Julio. I certainly want to ask you about his great run that he had, especially last weekend, but, you know, what has gotten into this team?
Everybody, it's funny how it's all so contagious. And, just having spent the last 10 days on this road trip and, 8-2, and truly every single player on the roster contributed positively to the outcomes. And, whether it was a big hit or clean innings and just giving us a chance and passing the baton, the whole lineup, up and down the lineup, everybody was hitting, everybody was swinging at good pitches, that there was a focus that frankly was exciting to watch. And, and our pitching, like it has been, generally answers the call, day after day. And right now we're playing the best baseball that we've played all year long and really just great baseball, period.
How welcoming was the air conditioning on that flight home, you think, yesterday afternoon?
Yeah, I know Scott got on the flight. And he got on and he said, "I got to tell you, that was one of the 5 hottest games I've ever been on the field for." And I said, "Yeah, it was nice and cool inside." But the guys really had to grind through it. 10-day road trips, really, with no days off, they get on you, and it's a grind. And yesterday, how hot it was out there, and just the type of game that was played. It was great to see our guys make what I thought was an awesome comeback in the end. And we lost in a weird way, but the effort level is so high right now, and the focus, again, as I said before, is just in an extreme place, and it was never more apparent than the last couple innings of yesterday's game, when after such an awesome road trip on such a hot day with such a grinder, and facing a starting pitcher yesterday who, frankly, was going to be really hard to hit because you just couldn't get settled in the batter's box. And the guys found a way and they grind through. And I think everybody comes out of that trip with a great feeling about where we're at.
Yeah, understandable too. I mean, what a just sort of weird, crazy way for it to end. One thing, and I want to get to Julio here in a sec, but one thing we were trying to kind of guess along with and try to figure out what happened is the decision to go with Munoz in the 9th yesterday. Not that in and of itself is odd, but with him having pitched the day before and Brash hadn't gone in a couple of days, I guess the first question is Matt Brash okay?
Yeah, Matt's great. He came out of the series with Houston, feel a little banged up, and we were trying to give him a few extra days. Our pitching staff in general has really carried a lot of the water, and Matt, especially through that Kansas City series and on into Houston, picked up a lot of it. Mooney had only thrown 4 pitches the night before last, and I think 4 pitches, 3 strikes, cleaned it up pretty quickly. And he's generally been the go-to in that position anyway. So it wasn't a very difficult decision, and it was made easier by the fact that we were hoping to give Matt one more day, in addition to today's off day, to give him a chance to really be ready for this weekend.
Okay. Makes sense. And just sort of going back and looking at the game log, I mean, Brash pitched in, 3 of the 4 in Kansas City, and how careful do you have to be with some of those guys at this point? I'm even thinking about your starting pitching, as we'll ask you here in a moment about Hancock. Where is your depth at right now?
It's part of the reason why we quickly pivoted and picked up Luke Weaver when he was accessible to us. We're at a time in the baseball calendar where you don't have a lot of access to players that don't play in your own organization. So, being in tune with the transaction wire and what's happening and, in the non-traditional markets, waiver wires, it's free agents, it's players with outs. That's where your depth's coming from if it's not from your own organization. But having lost Emerson, with no Robbie Ray, with no Marco Gonzalez, already having tapped into Bryce Miller and Brian Wu, and then, Emerson Hancock, there's only so far you can go before you start to wobble a little bit. And we left the house to go find a guy that we thought could help both in providing length in our bullpen and potentially stepping in if we needed a next depth starter. And, we have a couple of guys in AAA who have experience, in Tommy Malone and Adam Aller. But, beyond that, we've got another month and a half to play, and our guys that have carried us are hopefully going to continue to carry us.
Does that, just quickly here, does that, last week we talked about the possibility of going to a 6-man rotation. Where is that now today?
Our most recent discussions, which were last night, actually, our most recent discussions are, we're at a place on the schedule where the off days are going to start helping us. And you're naturally going, and we said this, I think, last week or the week before on the show, that, we are at a place where the off days are going to start helping us at a certain point, and the guys will get the extra days. And obviously the pitcher that we are most in tune with, trying to make sure we help across the long season, is Brian Wu. Just because he's not done anything like it before. So you might see a skip start or, some type of truncated start, but we're going to go with our 5 starters that are currently out there, and we might, get into a skip start situation, but we're not going to disrupt the other guys and let them continue to do the thing that they're doing. And, it might have been a different story had we had Emerson, but even when we were talking about a 6-man, we were only talking about a 6-man through the first week of September, which is when the schedule starts to give us a little bit of freedom. And, so it was 1, maybe 2 more starts, and you might see, like I said, something like a skip start or a shorter start, but not a traditional 6-man rotation.
Well, to quote you right there, not seeing something like it before, that would be also Julio Rodriguez. So, Jerry, the canvas is yours. Paint what you have seen over the last month, and in particular, breaking baseball history.
I mean, my gosh, it was phenomenal to watch, and and we've been waiting for Julio to really bust out this year, and I say that, and it's almost comical that we look at his season, coming into the All-Star break. He's an elite defender in center field, an elite base runner, and he was having a slightly above average offensive season with a lot of, athletic traits. The stolen bases were piling up, et cetera. And then he just took it to a different level. He took elite, and added another elite to it. So, this is what Julio is capable of, and it's why the expectations are always so high. And sometimes, like I've said, we need to temper them because he is 22 and you're going to go through growing pains. But that's sure not the way it's looked for the last 4 or 5 weeks, and especially on this road trip where I've had a chance to play with MVPs and Hall of Famers, and we've had a lot of great players come through. And I don't know too many of them that can change games the way he changed games for about a week straight, where it was just unbelievable to watch. He was hotter than the sun.
There are times you can see physical adjustments with players, right? Whether their hands or their stance in a swing or something of that nature. And there's times, I don't know, I'm not noticing any physical adjustment, but there's been obviously conversation with the hitting coach, and he has. What have your eyes seen? Is it mental? Is it experience? Is it physical? If you were to just try to quantify how he went from elite to that upper elite.
Well, I think some of it, and again, I don't want to attribute too much of this. We have talked about here before, like the notion that just getting past the burden or the expectations of the All-Star game, of being in the home run contest, of being the hometown guy that everybody was looking at, and taking a breather, relaxing for a day or two is probably helpful. But from an adjustment standpoint, a physical adjustment standpoint, he has made a pretty notable adjustment. He is not sinking into his legs as much as he did for most of the first half of the season. And it's probably not easily discernible for people who don't watch it closely every day. And, our hitting coaches do a phenomenal job of staying on top of it. And Julio coming out of the All-Star break, or it might have been actually, immediately after the All-Star break with Jarrett DeHart, working on not getting into his legs so much, that sink down, bounce up kind of look. And, he got a little bit taller in the box. He got a little bit more athletic in the box. And, I think you're seeing the benefit is his bat is in the zone longer. He's not in and out. He can cover all kinds of pitches, and as importantly, he's swinging at the right pitches.
Yeah,
so there has been a physical adjustment.
At Chambers tomorrow, I mean, that's something Salk really struggles with the driver, Jerry. Sometimes he gets into his legs. I'm like, bro, just don't sink so much. What?
How dare you?
When you're a little more upright.
Don't embarrass me in front of Jerry.
No, when you're more upright, you just let that driver run all the way through.
Hey, we had an opportunity this week to talk to Josh Rojas for the first time. First of all, oh my gosh,
wow.
Brock and I were just completely blown away by him as a guy, as a thinker, at long answers, as a
communicator.
Talker. Are you worried about him taking your job at some point?
I'll take my chances, and if I do, it'll probably be for the better for the organization. But there's a reason why we've really kind of coveted Josh for a number of years. And one of our coaches actually asked me while we were on the road trip, what was it about Rojas that really that we were attracted to? And I said, sometimes with a player, it's easy. It's a tool. It's something that stands out. It's power. It's a feel to hit. With Josh, it's just a feel to play baseball. And he has, I think, and you've identified it in a brief interaction, the makeup is awesome. Just he gets the game. He's awesome in a clubhouse. He's got aptitude on a field, and he does a lot of little things on the field, from solid defense to he's an excellent base runner with good instincts, and he's always hit right-handed pitching. And we really did think when we made that deal that he was a great bounce-back candidate. And I know it looked unusual on the surface, and small sample size theater, he's played very well for us. But, at the same time, these are things that he has done before as a major league player. He's always been a good player. And right now, we're reaping the benefits of believing in who the person was.
So 2 other questions about him then. One, we spent a lot of time talking earlier this season about veteran leadership and where it would come from, et cetera. Is he one of those guys that, sort of fills that role that you guys have been looking for?
He might be. We don't have a ton of players who've been around and who've been through good seasons, who've played through playoff races and things like that, with a lot of service time. And Josh isn't, he's here for another couple of years beyond this and gives you, that experience and that calming presence in a clubhouse. It's hard to tell this soon, whether that will result in clubhouse leadership. I know that's the way they felt about him in Arizona. And, he's obviously came up with the Houston organization, was traded to the Diamondbacks, and part of the reason why they were reluctant to include him in the trade was because of the impact he had in their clubhouse. And, I'm hopeful that that's how it turns out here, but I have no expectation. It's just that, the sauce is so different in every place. And right now, between JP, I thought, especially while JP was out with his concussion, Eugenio Suarez, our whole group, Julio, we had guys step up and really make the clubhouse an awesome place to be. And Josh contributed to that.
The other thing we noticed in talking to him, he paid you guys a compliment and saying that he was very open to coaching when he came in. He was going through some adjustments and said, all right, what do you guys see? Tell me what's going on. I respect the hitting coaches here, and you guys know what you're doing. How, we spent a long time early this year talking to you and with you about hitting coaches and the system and the way guys use their own personal coaches and your coaches. It must have been somewhat refreshing, I would think, to have a guy come in and say, hey, what do you want me to do? How can I help?
Yeah, I mean, it's, Josh did that. I know Dom Canzone did the same thing. And, and our coaches were blown away with how open to being coached they were, and which is a really good thing. And I wouldn't say super common among major league players. This is the top 1%. These guys are the best players alive today. And as a result, you're going to have to really show them something to sway them on what they should or shouldn't do. But these guys clicked immediately with our group, and the results, like I said, have been, really positive so far. That's all you can ask of your players, is for them to be open-minded, because we have good programs, we have great staff, and I think right now, when you've got such good mojo, there's a vibe around our team. everybody wants to get involved. And right now, like I said, the players, the coaches, it's really clicking on all cylinders.
Jerry, it was really fun for us yesterday to have Hall of Famer John Smoltz on the show. And John is not short on opinion when it comes to some of the old school belief and philosophies versus some of the new age numbers and data and everything else. And he's got strong opinions, a great conversationalist. He also feels very strongly about arm health and pitching health. And I am just curious, now that you're in this business on this side of it, and you also pitched in the era that John pitched, were guys getting banged up and arm injuries as significant then? And obviously I'm asking you this with the Ohtani news of late last night, as they seem to be today?
Yeah. And, it's funny. Smoltzy and I were on a board together, a Major League board, and this dates back to 2014, 15, 16, a handful of years with, other former pitchers and a couple of prominent baseball people that, and this was our discussion matter every other week for a couple of years was how do we, create a healthier environment for pitcher development. And we were talking about, frankly, Little League on up. How can we, with the impact of velocity, with the impact of what we now know about creating spin on the baseball, is there a way we can get out in front of the potential for injury? But if we look back on it, the game has changed so much from 30 years ago when we were playing, or the 30 years prior to that. You weren't seeing a whole lot of guys throw at the kind of velocity they throw at now. You weren't seeing pitchers throwing 60-70% breaking balls, and but once the genie's out of the bottle, you're not putting that one back in. When somebody knows they can throw 98, they're not going to say, "Oh, I prefer throwing 88." they like the idea of throwing hard, and so the game has adapted to these physical skills, and as such, starting pitchers don't pitch quite as long. Relievers have taken on a more prominent role. I do think that there's, the potential for, learning more about injury as we move forward. We don't really know if this is, there are as many injuries, if not more now than there were then, but there were injuries then. And Smoltzy is a great example. He was on the shelf for a period of time. Mm-hmm. It happens when you're propelling a ball forward at the rates that these guys do.
Gosh, and certainly we've seen it this year. I mean, your pitching has been the best in baseball, and yet it's overcome Marco and Robbie and Penn Murphy and now Emerson Hancock and and I'm certain other guys that have worked through some issues. What is the latest with Emerson and the prognosis moving forward?
It was going to be a 6 to 8 week thing for him with his, it's a lat in back of his right shoulder, which is, generally bothered him in the past. If going back to his draft year in 2020, it's been a sometimes repetitive thing that jumps up and grabs him. It delayed the start to his 2022 season. Obviously it shortened his 2023 season. So we're looking into what we can do to try to prevent this from moving forward. Anything from diet and nutrition to different, strength and training programs. Emerson's open to that. But once we understood that it was going to be, a 6 to 8 week thing, obviously that puts us at season's end. And, with just a handful of major league outings under his belt, we thought the wisest thing to do is just shut him down and get him moving toward 2024.
Any update on Jared Kelenic this morning?
No, just that he's out of his boot. He is starting to go through his baseball programs. We don't yet have a timeline, simply because his foot's not healed. His foot, there's enough healing that he's now out of the boot and can start going through, more physically exerting activity. What that results in return to play, not quite sure yet. We don't have a hard program, but as I said before, and Scott and I laughed about it on the plane last night. Whatever we determine the timeline is, I'm guessing it's going to be quicker than that.
Yeah, that's weird. I saw him on Tiger Mountain with a weighted vest and heavy weighted bats. I think he's itching to come back. Hey, you were up in the air conditioning, not in the heat and humidity. Are you a little bit like the rest of us? Do you scoreboard watch? Do you find yourself watching the game and flipping over to whatever site you can to see what else is going on in baseball?
Oh, now you do. And and whoever tells you you don't in May, you don't in June. Once you get into the dog days and it's on, You do. And, we now see the finish line is there. You see where it is. You see where you stand, and nobody's not watching. And, for the players, they're focused on the game on the field, and they're going to turn around and look from time to time, or certainly pick up the phone when they get into the clubhouse. Minimally, everybody's watching highlights or game day feeds on bus rides. So we're just at that time of year, and this is the fun of being in a playoff race. It's the same for the players and the staff as it is for the fans. It's fun. It's exciting. You see what's happening around you, and the key is to not let it affect what you're doing on the field. But this is the time of year that you want to be in a position like we're in, and you want to watch the scoreboard.
Must have been kind of fun getting to cheer for Seawald at the end of the game the other day too, right? I mean, at least you're already rooting for the guy, and then you get a chance to watch him help you out. That's kind of a nice situation. Hey, I want to ask you about, this is sort of an odd one, but being hit by pitches. And you guys lead the major leagues in being hit by pitches last year. Right now you're at 90 for the season. That's more than all of last year, where I think the number was 89, which was 4th or 5th in baseball. Is that a concern? Is it a badge that you wear proudly? How do you look at that?
In a weird way, it's a skill, and we have a couple of players for whom it's a skill. And that sounds weird. No hitter goes up there thinking, boy, I'm going to get hit by this one. But between Ty France and Jose Caballero especially, it is a skill for them. They both crowd the plate. They both don't give up ground. They have a history of being hit by pitches. And I don't think that they're not being hit by pitches because they're being headhunted. They're being hit by pitches because that's a skill of theirs. And it contributes to their on base. It contributes to moving the lineup. And, I asked Ty this, this might have been last year. He got hit it was 3 or 4 straight nights that he got hit on his arm guard. And I said, what does that feel like when you get hit on the arm guard? He said, oh, it hurts. It's unpleasant. And, they're not up there trying to get hit, but we do tend to get hit more than most. It's part of our personality, and especially the personality of this team, of the 2023 Mariners. It's a grinder team. It's a depth team. They get under your skin, and when that's happening and you're in the box and you're crowding it, it feels emotional when Cabby gets plunked. But in the reality, and for the most part, I will say, there are times where this may not be true. The reality is it's always been a part of their skill set, and it's just going to happen over the course of time.
His skill set is almost like a hockey player. He's like, he's kind of got some of that irritant hockey player in him, doesn't he?
It's funny, and you may or may not remember this when in the early spring when the Kraken were making their good run and they went toward the postseason. Our teams are not too dissimilar. It's deep, the fourth line of our team. Right now you're seeing that depth pay off, and in baseball it is such a 26-man game. So much of the roster needs to contribute, just like in hockey. And Cabby is that guy. He's the grinder. He's not afraid. He'll go battle the giant, and he doesn't care who you are. And I think it's a personality trait we hope he always keeps.
Jerry, thank you. Really fun baseball here over the course of the last few months, and especially over the last couple of weeks. We appreciate it. We'll do it again next Thursday in the middle of the homestand.
All right, guys. Look forward to it.